Hello, hello, hello. I am presenting a workshop tonight on stomach acid and how it is impacting and really controlling the entire digestive process, north to south. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I love doing these workshops. These are a way for me to do deep dive explanations of pretty complex physiological processes. Education is such an important aspect of what I do with all of my clients. I find that the more people understand what's actually happening with their bodies, the more able that they are to make significant changes in their lives and for their health and well being. So, again, tonight's topic is stomach acid. And when we're talking stomach acid, we're going to be talking about the full digestive process, interestingly enough, and looking at digestion as a north to south process. So, let me get everybody situated here. And there we go. Okay. I'm streaming on multiple different platforms, so getting everybody straightened out here. Okay. So, stomach acid and digestive process from north to south. So, for those of you who suffer from belching, particularly after you've eaten, it can be about an hour or so after you eat, it can happen immediately. Other symptoms may be acid reflux. That's a very common symptom associated with a deficiency in stomach acid. Ulcers, oddly enough, can also be as a result of deficiencies in stomach acid. And I'm going to get into the hows and whys of what that looks like. And then other digestive issues can develop due to a lack of stomach acid. They're not oftentimes immediate, but as you will learn in this workshop, being able to produce enough stomach acid really does dictate all of the other digestive processes that happen from north to south. And I'm going to explain what this north to south process even means. So, what people can end up developing over time is constipation, diarrhea, a lot of food sensitivities are as a result of a deficiency in stomach acid. So, we're going to be talking through all of that. Okay, so I've been mentioning this phrase north to south a lot. What in the world does that mean? So the digestive process starts in your mouth and it ends in your anus. So you eat food, you chew it up. It goes through a multitude of different digestive processes, multiple different enzymes coming together in order to break down fats, proteins, carbohydrates. And then eventually, once your body has extracted nutrients that it needs from the food that you've eaten, it then gets rid of it through your colon, okay, when you have a bowel movement or when you go pee. So bladder or colon. So we're going to be looking at how every single one of those steps that comes into play as food makes its way down the digestive tract depends and is cued by stomach acid. So let's start this digestive journey in the mouth. Okay, so let's imagine that you have sat down with your family. You've made yourself a roasted chicken, delicious with some Italian herbs on top. It's all crispy on the top. And you've got some potatoes. Those you've put olive oil on, salt and pepper. You've got some asparagus going on. And this is a really healthy, beautiful meal, right? Here's what I say to my clients all the time. You can eat the most well-balanced, healthiest meal, but if your digestive system is not functioning properly, that beautiful food, that highly nutritious food can ferment and actually go bad in your digestive system, thereby contributing actually to inflammation in your system and also depriving your body of the essential nutrients that it needs from that meal that you're eating. Okay? So now let's say you're eating that chicken, potato, asparagus meal in front of the TV. Okay. And let's say that the news is on and you're watching something really stressful. Meanwhile, your significant other is annoying you and you are irritated. Okay, so your stress levels are starting to go up. You're watching something stressful on the TV, and you're also having a stressful conversation with your significant other. Meanwhile, you're trying to chew and enjoy your meal, but your mind is elsewhere, and your body is now excreting stress hormones. So, there are two different modes of the nervous system. There's the sympathetic mode, which is our fight or flight mode. Okay, so again, you are watching something stressful on TV and you're also fighting with your partner. So your nervous system is going into a fight or flight state. The other mode of the nervous system is called the rest and digest state. Isn't that amazing? So, what we know about the digestive system is that it works the best when we are in a relaxed state. And for a lot of us, we are not in a relaxed state when we are eating. We are working while we are eating. You're shoveling food into your mouth, and before you know it, it's gone and you haven't even tasted it. Okay. I will raise my hand and say that I have to work with myself on this daily. Okay. So you are not alone if that's you. Here's what happens when we're doing that, when we're shoveling food into our mouth and we're also stressed out simultaneously. You are not in a rest and digest state. So your digestive system already, right off the bat, is not properly prepared to be able to digest what you're eating. Secondarily, if you're stressed and your also mind is elsewhere, you don't get to enjoy your food, which, come on, like, food is so enjoyable. It is such a joy, right? So you miss out on that enjoyment. The third thing that happens, and I would say actually that arguably this is the most important aspect of the digestive process that really gets skipped over. People just don't choose their food anymore. And chewing is an incredibly important part of the digestive process. The more that you can chew up your food, the better off your digestive system is going to be. So let me put it to you this way. Again, we're eating chicken for dinner tonight, okay? Potatoes, asparagus. If you only give that food a couple of bites and then you swallow it down, we're looking at rather large pieces of chicken. Protein is incredibly difficult to digest. Doesn't mean you shouldn't eat protein. You should absolutely eat protein. And we also need to ensure that your digestive system can actually digest it. So if you've only partially chewed up that chicken, we now have rather large pieces of chicken sitting in the stomach. Okay? So then from here, your parietal cells in the lining of your stomach, their task is to produce hydrochloric acid, oftentimes known as HCl, oftentimes known as stomach acid. So that HCl is then going to be combining with the chief cells, which produce inactive pepsinogen. That HCl helps that inactive pepsinogen to turn into pepsin. So HCl and pepsin are how you initiate the digestion of protein. If you've essentially just swallowed your chicken whole and not chewed it up, you are inherently going to need more HCl and pepsin in order to break down that food. Okay, so first and foremost, please chew your food as well as you possibly can. There's a common phrase that is said, which is chew your liquids and drink your solids. Kind of gets the point across here. Okay, so even if you're eating a smoothie, you still want to try to chew it up as much as you can. Okay, and there are other components of this that I'm not going to get into in this workshop. Components in terms of the signals that your brain is sending to your digestive system just by the act of chewing. Your brain is already prepping your digestive system for the food that's going to come. So if you're just swallowing down that smoothie without really giving your brain ample time to send those messages, that as well can complicate digestive processes. Okay, so thus far, here's what we've learned. Slow the heck down, okay? Try to relax when you're eating. Chew your food. So that food then lands in your stomach. The parietal cells are producing HCl. They're helping to convert inactive pepsinogen into pepsin. That then creates a scenario in the stomach in which the stomach's pH is beginning to lower. It's becoming quite acidic. The stomach is a very acidic environment on purpose. The stomach is oftentimes referred as the churn and burn zone. Okay, so that food is getting moved around, and again, it's very acidic. For a lot of people, they are not producing enough stomach acid. I run a panel in my practice called a GI map. It is an incredible test that gives us an immense amount of information about the gut microbiome. And from the results of this test, I can start to identify patterns, some of which can point to a lack of stomach acid. One infection that is very, very common is called H. pylori. H. pylori essentially inhibits the action of the parietal cells. In other words, it prevents your stomach from producing enough stomach acid. Okay. So again, why do we care? What does stomach acid do for us? Well, number one, it helps to break down the food that is entered into your stomach in that very acidic environment. But that's just scratching the surface. So from there, once food has hit, that food that you've just chewed and is down your stomach, once the stomach has hit that very acidic level, okay, again, between 1.5 to 3H on the pH scale, because it's hit that acidic level, it actually then sends a message to the small intestines saying, okay, now we're ready to pass this food off to you. The food has hit a very low acidic level. We've started the digestive process. Now we're going to hand you off to the small intestines. Once the small intestines receives that message that the food is quite acidic, it then sends hormonal messages to the gallbladder and also to the pancreas. So the small intestines is sending hormones to the gallbladder, asking the gallbladder to release bile. Bile is what helps us to digest fat. The small intestines is also calling down to the pancreas and saying, hey, pancreas, I need you to get ready to release pancreatic enzymes. There are a whole number of pancreatic enzymes that do a variety of different digestive processes. And at that base level, pancreatic enzymes help us to complete the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and even fats. So to review here, relax. That's important, right? Chew your food. That chewed food then goes down to your stomach. The stomach needs to hit that really acidic level. Because it's hit that acidic level due to enough stomach acid, that then cues the small intestines to send messages to the pancreas and the gallbladder. So now that food, that chicken, that asparagus, that potatoes that we ate for dinner is now hanging out in the small intestines. Let's assume that you have produced enough stomach acid. So all of these messages have been sent. So that dinner that you ate is now in the small intestines. The small intestines has sent the message to the gallbladder, to the pancreas, and it is starting to receive bile to help break down the fat in your food, and it's also receiving pancreatic enzymes. So now that food that you've eaten, that beautiful meal, is getting broken down properly. The digestive system is working well. The small intestines is the place where we absorb the majority of the nutrients that we eat. Okay, and the stomach is, again, that churn and burn spot. Okay, there's no absorption happening there. We're just trying to hit that low pH and establish those first steps of digestion. Then in the small intestines, it's all about absorption of the nutrients from your food. Then from there, that food is then sent to your colon or your large intestines. And it's in the large intestines that the digestive system completes this digestive journey, tries to draw out the last little bits of nutrients from the food that you've consumed. This is where fiber is really, really important. And the colon can then start to produce its own vitamins for your body. Specifically, vitamin K and vitamin Bs are produced in the colon. This is an interesting point because a lot of people are quite deficient in vitamin Bs. There's a lot of different reasons for that. There are genetic methylation issues with vitamin B, but also what we see is that for people who have compromised issues in their colon, they're not going to be able to produce as much vitamin B. And vitamin B is really essential for all sorts of different activities in the body. But one of the areas that I like to focus on a lot is just energy. So many of us are so fatigued, and vitamin B is really, really important for that. So again, colon health is key to that. Okay. And then once your colon has done its job, then you have a bowel movement and chicken, asparagus, and potatoes are gone. Okay. So let's rewind and go through that process, imagining that you now don't have enough stomach acid. What does that then result in? So if your chicken, asparagus, potato salad lands in your stomach and you are not able to produce enough stomach acid. So let's say that we ran a GI map test on you and we discovered that you do have an H. pylori infection. And we know that H. pylori will inhibit the production of stomach acid. So that food hits your stomach. Your stomach is not able to hit that low acidic level. Okay. It doesn't have what it needs to do that. What happens then? The sphincter that connects your stomach to your small intestines is cued to open only when the contents of your stomach hit a low enough pH. So that food will sit there and wait until the pH is low enough. The sphincter won't open until that food has hit a low enough pH. It'll sit there for a while. And here's what happens. People will start to have belching after they eat. They'll feel really full, okay, even though maybe they haven't even eaten very much at all. They might start experiencing heartburn. Okay, this is very, very common to experience heartburn from this. Eventually, that food will sit in the stomach for long enough that it'll start to putrefy and ferment. This is part of that kind of gaseousness that happens from there. And that sphincter that connects the stomach to the small intestines will eventually open to allow that food to move into the small intestines. But again, that beautiful meal that you've eaten, that chicken, that asparagus, those potatoes, they are no longer very nutrient dense because they have hung out for way too long in your stomach. They're already starting to create an inflammatory response in the digestive system. That food then moves into the small intestines. And remember that you're not producing enough stomach acid, and the small intestines responds to stomach acid. The small intestines will start to send messages to the gallbladder asking for help to break down fat. It'll send a message to the pancreas to break down carbohydrates, fat, protein. Without that low enough pH from stomach acid, the small intestines will not be sending those messages, and therefore it will not get the help that it needs to break down fat and to break down other nutrients. Okay? So that undigested food is now traveling through the small intestines. And one of the key factors in developing food sensitivities is this particular scenario. So food winds up in the small intestines, and that chicken, for instance, is supposed to be broken down into an amino acid. The amino acid is what is released into your bloodstream and then is utilized throughout your body to help you live a healthy, happy life, to help keep you strong and build muscle and help your brain function and help you make hormones and help you with inflammation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have a situation in which that chicken did not get properly digested. It is still chicken, little particles of chicken that are now going to move into the bloodstream. The immune system is going to see that chicken in the bloodstream and it's not going to recognize it. That chicken is supposed to be an amino acid. It's not supposed to be a whole food. The immune system will then mount a response to that chicken and start to develop an inflammatory reaction to it. And this is how people start to develop food sensitivities over time. Interestingly enough, with this scenario, the more often you eat chicken, and a lot of people get into food ruts, myself included. It takes a lot of effort to keep a diet really diversified. When you're not eating a diverse diet and say you're eating chicken, 5-6 times a week, that's that many more times that your immune system is coming into contact with that inflammatory food. The more often it comes in contact with that inflammatory food, the more pissed off it gets, the more inflammation it produces against that food. Okay. So those food sensitivities can really ramp up over time. Then, as that food starts to move into the colon, again, it has not been properly digested. It's starting to putrefy. It's not nutrient dense. It lands in the colon and starts to create problems there as well. This is where we can oftentimes see people suffering from diarrhea, constipation, and they're really missing out on that last process of digestion in the colon. Thereby, the colon isn't able to produce as many nutrients, vitamin K's, vitamin B's, due to that delay in the digestive process, due to the fact that that food got stuck in your stomach because you weren't producing enough stomach acid. Okay. So let me pause for a second, check my notes, and then see if there are any questions about this presentation tonight. Let's see. Okay, so I don't really know how to say your name. Sejana, something like that, Sejana. So she's asking, what happens when I eat something and I'm getting a lot of acid stomach ache? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question in 2 different ways. The traditional methodology for dealing with kind of what people sense as being an acidic stomach is to take some sort of antacid, and that will relieve those acidic symptoms initially. However, it does not actually solve the problem, and it only perpetuates the problem. So what I do in my practice with people who suffer from acid reflux, heartburn, that kind of thing, is that we oftentimes need to initially do some gut healing. We need to help restore the mucosal lining of the stomach so that it can actually hold stomach acid again. This is very, very common. In a scenario where people aren't producing enough stomach acid and that food is just sitting there for so long, it can create a lot of inflammation in the lining of the stomach. This is, again, where people start to develop ulcers and suffer from acid reflux in general. So counterintuitively, in both of those situations, we actually need to first heal the lining of the stomach and then very, very slowly introduce stomach acid supplementation in order to support that pH balance in the stomach. This is absolutely possible. I have done this with so many clients, and it really makes a huge difference. Okay, so I see one other message in here, but Unfortunately, I am not that smart at social media, and sometimes I don't know how to open my messages. All right, so the last couple of pieces that I want to talk about here are factors that can influence the production of stomach acid. So stress is a huge factor. We talked about that at the beginning of the workshop, how much stress can influence the digestive system's ability to work. Okay, again, per the nervous system. A really high carbohydrate diet can cause all sorts of issues in the digestive system, particularly if you're eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugar. That can change the overall balance of the gut microbiome quite substantially. And it's sort of a self-perpetuating cycle in which you're eating carbohydrates because you find that they're the easiest to digest, which they are. But then they are feeding the bad guys in the gut microbiome or the dysbiotic bacteria. And then that compromises digestive capacity in general, which then makes it more difficult to digest protein. Okay, so you kind of get into this. People oftentimes get into this cycle where they feel like all they can eat are carbohydrates and they can't digest protein, okay, which only further degrades the function of the digestive system. Deficiencies in vitamin B and zinc. Zinc especially is really, really important building block of stomach acid. Zinc is oftentimes a supplement that I will recommend to people who are deficient in stomach acid so that we can help them start to build up their stomach acid production again. Here again, this ends up being a self-perpetuating cycle because if you have really compromised digestive function, it then makes it difficult to even utilize the supplements that you are taking. And I see that a lot in my practice. There are many, many ways to work with that. Food sensitivities, as we talked about briefly today, can also contribute to this, what we would call dysbiotic or imbalanced gut microbiome that really compromises the digestive process. And then finally, alcohol can also compromise the body's ability to produce stomach acid. Now, we want to take this one step further. So we've just kind of laid out the scenario in which when you're not producing enough stomach acid, you're also then not able to digest protein well, fat, and carbohydrates. Again, carbohydrates are easier to digest than fat and protein. I see this commonly in my practice. I run this stool test that I mentioned earlier called a GI map, and it helps us to identify how well you are digesting fat, how well you are producing pancreatic enzymes. And frequently, what I'll see is that my clients are very deficient in the enzymes needed to break down those key macronutrients. So let's take a client who is suffering from severe PMS. And also, upon running a hormone panel for them, we're seeing that they're not producing progesterone. Then when I look at their GI map, I find that they're also not digesting fat very well. This person's also suffering from a lot of chronic pain. Okay, we'll oftentimes see that all of these symptoms are sort of commingled, very, very common. They've got hormonal imbalances, they're suffering from digestive issues, and chronic pain is often right in the mix with that. When you look at the basic physiology of how the body deals with inflammation, the building blocks of dealing with inflammation come from fat. Okay. You'll oftentimes hear about essential fatty acids. You can take essential fatty acids as a supplement. One of the main purposes of that is to help with inflammation. If you are, number one, deficient in stomach acid, and possibly number two, your gallbladder is really not producing enough bile to break down fat, this will create a scenario in which your body is suffering from more inflammation because you do not have the building blocks to produce what's called prostaglandins to help your body recover from inflammation. Okay, so I always like to bring all of these components together for you. Oftentimes, the way that we talk about the body, we separate different organs as if they live on different planets. We separate PMS from constipation. We separate blood sugar from diarrhea. Okay? All of these symptoms are not happening, they're not siloed from each other. Okay, they are happening concurrently and they're actually impacting one another. So, this stomach acid piece is a very, very important piece to supporting and amplifying the digestive process, which in turn gives your body the nutrients that it needs to deal with inflammation, to produce hormones, to balance your blood sugar, to give you energy throughout the day, to give your brain energy throughout the day, to help you balance your moods, to give you energy to exercise and build muscle, to help you sleep at night. Okay? So again, we are absolutely what we eat. And more importantly, we are what we digest. And stomach acid is such an important part of that north to south process. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you being here as always. I offer these workshops twice a month at 5:45 Pacific Standard Time on Thursday evenings. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find my information on IG and TikTok in my bio. You can hop into my link tree there and get in touch. If you're joining me from Facebook, you can get in touch with me through my website. If you have ideas about future shows, tonight's show I actually created because somebody had asked me a question about it. And I always encourage and love that. Your questions are most likely questions that other people have. And so often these questions are complex and they really do require a complex response. So I hope you have a great night and I will see you again sometime soon.